Welcome. You are going to now be ready to complete the next step in this process called funding. You have created trust. So, in your mind, think of the trust right as a bucket, it's a container. And now that the container has been created, you now have the ability to fill up that container with your assets to make sure that main thing, anything that gets aligned with your trust avoids probate, and also all those instructions that are in your trust get aligned, right? So that those instructions can be used for every asset. That being said, keep in mind that if something does not get aligned with your trust and it goes through probate after your passing, your will is what serves as that fishing net, that safety clause, that if something's not in the trust at the time of your passing, then even though probate has to happen, and that is one of the benefits of trust is, right, you can avoid probate. But if probate is needed, that probate is going to ensure that things get put into your trust after the fact. But if you have a goal of wanting to avoid probate and making things easy for loved ones after you pass away, then keep watching this video because this is really going to be your guide on how to make sure that happens. So thank you so much. And here we go. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so this is funding instructions for Elmo. We're continuing on with that theme. And I just want to go through Elmo's instructions so that when you are looking at your own funding instructions, you know exactly what is, you know how to navigate it. So first of all, often people get confused because institutions or other people are asking them, maybe their accountant, what is your trust tax ID? Now that you've created this trust, what is the ID? It is your social. That's why we have it in green, we have it highlighted, we bold, we underline it. It is your social. This is a huge indicator that your assets, even if they are in the trust, are to be treated exactly the same from a tax perspective. Your trust has a long name, and we recognize that it's going to be long and hard to write this down, sometimes in spaces that are like this wide, right? So we are making it clear that there is a shorthand version of the name of your trust. It is the name that is in purple. And anytime you need to write the name of the trust, please go ahead and use that shortened version because it is 100% legally acceptable. These are the assets that it is our preference that you change the ownership of and make that ownership from your name to your trust name. So Elmo is going to be changing the account name from Elmo and he's going to be making sure to have it be owned by the Elmo Living Trust. So these things are bank accounts. Bank accounts, they have asterisk and it's bold. That's because we have further details and explanations on how to deal with bank accounts. So we'll get back to that in a second. CDs, change the ownership. Any non-retirement investment brokerage accounts. What does non-retirement mean? I know you're probably rolling your eyes. You're like, Faiza, I know what this means. I'm going to spell it out. Any account that is not a 401k, a 403b, a Roth, a pension, a Keogh, I mean, the list goes on. Anything that is not retirement related, this is what this is talking about. Regular, just investment brokerage accounts that have nothing to do with retirement, those are accounts that we want for them to be changed from your name to instead be owned by your trust. If you are married and you have a joint brokerage account, investment account, you can still have joint accounts where they're just going to probably request that let's split it up and make sure that 50% is in one trust name and the other 50% is in the spouse's trust name. That is fine. That works great. And people do that all the time. Nothing's going to change on your end when it comes to taxes or anything like that. Any stocks that you have in your name alone, change it to your trust name. Otherwise, they're going to go into probate. Bonds, mutual funds, any real property. Okay. So If you are not getting the assistance of, our firm or another firm to assist you with the transfer of real estate, it's important that you make this a priority. If it's a priority of yours that your loved ones avoid probate, all right, because property is something that you can unfortunately not put a beneficiary on. So it is something that will go through probate. That being said, remember your will, which is instructions for probate, does say that if any probate is needed and anything goes through probate, it is to go and get put into your trust. So don't worry. You're like, what if I forget about something? What if I'm not able to do this at this point? If something happens to you, it's not owned by the trust. Any asset, not just real estate, any asset, it will be put into the trust after the fact to make sure that those instructions get carried out. But one of the biggest benefits of doing this kind of planning is to have that seamless transfer of inheritance to your loved ones. So, and that is only accomplished for property if it's held in a trust. So please reach out to us if you need some assistance with this, but it's going to be very important to make sure that if you have a goal to avoid probate, that it's owned by your trust. Beyond real estate, all these other things you can usually add a beneficiary to, right? And if you are unable to change the ownership of any of these above listed assets, then please add your trust as a beneficiary. If you're like, you know what, this seems like a hassle, I don't want to change the ownership, at the very least, change the beneficiary. Please, please, please change the beneficiary. Let's talk more about bank accounts. So you'll notice that there's two options here. First option is if you have an account that's just in your name. So Elmo has an account that's just Elmo's, okay? Then please make sure that, Elmo needs to make sure that his trust is listed as the only owner on that account. Instead of Elmo's bank account, it's going to be the Elmo Living Trust bank account. He will have to go into the bank physically to go in and request this change. We're saying to make sure, Elmo, you bring in your binder that has all those documents. Keep it in the trunk of your car, because the reason for this is sometimes banks will get excited. They see that you have that whole big thing and they'll say, we need to see the whole copy in order to make this change. But legally, they're not required to do that. The reason we request that you do bring it in is because some banks at some locations, not everywhere, it's not consistent, unfortunately, they might request that, again, this is not a legal requirement, but it might be their internal policy, that before we make this change to your account, we need to see the entirety of the trust. All I say is if they do ask for that, if they request that, show it to them, go to the trunk, go get your binder, bring it in, show it to them, and then get it back in your hands. Do not leave your binder with them. All right. Always ask to speak with a branch manager. They are familiar with this. They do this all the time. So ask for the branch manager to assist you with changing that ownership. All right, from a bank account to your trust. Next, what if you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to change the ownership of my account. Maybe you have a lot of, automatic deposits going in, and it just seems like a hassle. Or, it's a joint account. That if something happened to you, incapacity, well, that's okay. There's already someone else who's on that account with you. That's the biggest reason, by the way, my friends, that we want you to, if you have an account in your name alone, we want it to be owned by your trust, because if incapacity happens, then the successor trustee can seamlessly right away step in and do whatever they need to, pay bills, deposit, withdraw, do whatever they need to keep things moving. It's more of a seamless process as opposed to using your power of attorney for banks. But again, like I said, it's just you do have another option, and that option is adding your trust as a beneficiary. Okay, adding your trust as a beneficiary on a bank account. If you have a joint bank account, just skip straight to this step. Just add your trust as the beneficiary to that account. It can be 50-50, both trusts. It could say 100% one person's trust. It doesn't really matter because that beneficiary designation will only kick in if both of you have passed away. But if it's just you, upon your passing, it should, whatever is in that account should go to your trust and follow those instructions that are in the trust. Banks call this beneficiary designation, they call it a POD or TOD. It's called pay on death designation, transfer on death designation. Majority of people don't know that they can add this to their accounts. This is what's going to prevent that account from going into probate and making sure that whether it is $1,000 or $100,000, that those monies, regardless of how big or small they are, one, upon your passing, that trustee has access to those monies right away to be able to hit the ground running and use those monies to pay for any funeral costs, any filing the last income tax return. Essentially, they have access to liquid assets to start taking care of things. And then also afterwards, your beneficiaries, all those protections that you have for them and dictating who gets how much, all those instructions are applied to those monies. All right, changing gears, moving on from bank accounts. Next is there are certain things that you will never, never, ever change ownership on because there's tax ramifications. I'm not going to bore you to death because this is not a tax class, but this is why we give these specific instructions to you. These are the three things that we want to make sure that the beneficiaries get updated and the beneficiaries align with your trust. One is life insurance policies. It's insuring your life. It's not going to ensure that your trust life. It's ensuring your life. So the ownership has to stay you, but the beneficiary is going to be changed, and there's only going to be one beneficiary. That one beneficiary is your trust. If you have an annuity, you're going to change that primary beneficiary to your trust. No need for a contingent. For retirement accounts, look, it says send our beneficiary designations for retirement accounts sheet it should go to every single institution where you have a retirement account. And this page is found on the next page. All right. We are even saying, please attach our form to your retirement company's update beneficiary form with the written instructions of see attached. Literally write see attached, underline it, highlight it, and then attach this page. I do not expect you to try to fill in these instructions to their forms. It's impossible. I'm telling you right now, it is impossible. Much better to just print out those instructions, write see attached, clip our instructions to it, send it in. If you have like even O'Connell Law, we have our own company 401k plan, right? And for beneficiary designations, I just submitted this, right? For updating my beneficiary, I just wrote see attached and I submitted this to HR. It's all set. This is what you're going to be doing for yours as well. If you have any company or business or personal accounts, some places will give pushback and will say, we're sorry, but we cannot accept these custom instructions. That's fine. You keep it moving. You keep things how they are. Don't touch it. All right. In the future, if you change to another institution or if an account gets rolled over by a spouse, then we will make sure that our instructions get used. That being said, the vast majority, I'm talking about 95%, accept our instructions, whether it is businesses, HR, Fidelities of the world, Schwab, Merrill Lynch, onward and onward, they accept our instructions. Very rarely, maybe a few times a year, do we hear from our clients and they tell us that unfortunately these instructions were not accepted. Like I said, that's okay. You keep it moving because there are strong tax penalties if our instructions are not used the way they should be. So, meaning we always want to make sure that primary beneficiary stays spouse in their individual name. There is this disclaimer language. This disclaimer language is what allows a spouse that if they are doing tax planning, all right, so if you have a trust, if you have a trust that does tax planning, not every trust does, but if your trust does, this is what's giving that flexibility to the spouse to use retirement monies to fill up that $1 million subtrust coupon and use that coupon. If you are not doing tax planning, then this is over your head, just ignore it. But for every client, it's important that the contingent beneficiary lists our instructions in this manner because, and this is why it doesn't say 100% the Elmo trust is pointing to baby Elmo's benefit. It's pointing to a specific article in the trust, and it's talking about that it's baby Elmo shares this much. Why it's not saying that the contingent beneficiary is just 100% the Elmo Living Trust. Why does it not say that? That's because for required minimum distributions, we do not want the eldest beneficiary of the trust, their age to be used for every beneficiaries, for every beneficiary. So the primary beneficiary is Mrs. Elmo, but there's baby Elmo. Mrs. Elmo is a whole heck of a lot older than baby Elmo. This is why we want to make sure that each child or each beneficiary, their share, their instruction it points specifically to where their inheritance is listed. So that's why I want to make sure that it is our instructions, very customized, that are used and submitted. And if in that remote chance our instructions cannot be used, then stick with what you already have in place. Spouse and contingent beneficiaries individually named because of, again, like I mentioned, the issue with tax laws being different for retirement, and then also making sure that we're preserving every individual person's age to be used when calculating RMDs. All right. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that this is a good starting point for you and that you find that you can use these instructions and start, filling up that trust by aligning your assets, whether it's change of ownership or updating your beneficiary designation. Remember also that if you have any questions regarding these instructions, if you are someone that feels like I need a little bit more hand-holding, do not hesitate to reach out to our firm so we can talk about how we can best support you. And if we are assisting you with funding, then you already know that you have a meeting with our paralegal. It's going to be coming up in the near future, and they're going to be walking you through this. They're going to be answering any questions you have. And this is why it's so important for you to have watched this video, read these instructions, so you can kind of start, working on this, start reaching out, and start making a list of questions that you get along the way. So that meeting with our paralegal is as productive as possible. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching this. I hope this wasn't too boring. I hope you found this helpful. At the end of the day, I want to again say, just like anything else, anything that's paperwork related, it's annoying as heck. It's frustrating to do. It's important to get done. And knowing that, just give yourself grace. Don't beat yourself up if you are like, I hope to get this done in a month, and a month passes and you're like, I didn't get everything done on my list. Don't beat yourself up. Take your time. Everyone's calendars are different. Everyone has a different amount of stuff on their plate, and privacy laws, and just the way things are done, and automated machines, and that's what makes it tough for things to be done in an efficient manner. If you have a financial advisor, please submit these instructions to them. they will be a huge help. They will be so supportive to you in helping you get all of this stuff done. If we are assisting you with funding, then you already know that we will be reaching out to your advisor after we meet with you, after our paralegal meets with you. Then we're going to be meeting with your, excuse me, we will be submitting these instructions specifically to your advisor. We will also be touching base with them to make sure that we are all on the same page. If you don't have a financial advisor, if that's something you're interested in exploring, if you're like, wow, actually, I've never even thought about that. I would love to have a financial planner. There should be someone that kind of oversees not just the estate planning piece, but kind of just the overall everything that you have, and someone that helps guide you and helps you and your family navigate, just life and tax laws and, planning for retirement. If you would like a recommendation of, you know, some financial advisors, please don't hesitate to reach out. We work with some really amazing advisors, and it's our honor and our pleasure to give you, a list of names that we, truly just trust our clients to use. So thank you so much for watching this. I wish you the very best. I'm not going anywhere, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.